In an isolated colonial mansion, a businessman finds his mother kneeling in the garden, eating herbs in a trance. What seemed like madness reveals a dark pattern linked to infusions given by his fiancée. As he investigates, he discovers that the woman he loves may be behind a series of silent deaths. If this story has interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear. Morning was slowly breaking over St. Helens Farm, a property that had belonged to the Thompson family for 3 generations. Roderick awoke to the song of robins filling the ancient oak trees in the yard. That was his refuge, the place he came to whenever he needed to slow down from the frantic pace of London, where he commanded one of the largest property development companies in the country. In recent months, however, he had been coming to the farm more frequently. He told himself it was to better care for his mother, Helen, who at 72 insisted on living alone in that green expanse of the Midlands countryside. But deep down he knew he was also running from something he couldn't quite name. He put on a pair of jeans and a light linen shirt. He descended the wooden stairs that creaked under his feet, echoing childhood memories. The house smelled of fresh coffee and freshly baked apple pie. Christine, his fiancée, was already in the kitchen, wearing a floral apron, smiling with that sweetness that had won him over 6 months ago at a charity event in Birmingham. She was a holistic psychologist, claiming to work with alternative therapies and elderly care. When they met, Roderick was still processing the loss of his father, Albert, who had passed away 2 years prior, a victim of a sudden heart condition. "Good morning, love. Your mother is still sleeping," Christine said, approaching for a quick kiss. "I've prepared her special tea, the one that helps with anxiety. You know how restless she gets in the mornings." Roderick nodded, picking up a cup of coffee. "Thank you for taking such good care of her, Chris. I don't know what I'd do without you here." Christine smiled, but there was something about that smile that Roderick couldn't quite decipher. It was almost too perfect, too rehearsed. He pushed the thought away. He was being unfair. The woman had left her routine in Birmingham to spend long periods at the farm, dedicating herself entirely to Helen. What more could he ask for? "I'm going for a walk in the garden before breakfast," he announced, stepping out the side door. The sun was already high, illuminating the rose and jasmine beds his mother cultivated with such care. Helen had always been a strong, determined woman who managed the farm with a firm hand after she was widowed. Roderick walked along, distracted, observing the flowers, when he noticed something strange. Some flower beds were visibly disturbed, with empty spaces where dense foliage had once been. The soil was freshly turned in certain spots, and there were marks that looked like fingers dug into the ground. He continued walking, intrigued until a sound made him stop. It was a muffled cry coming from the other side of the garden, near the bamboo fence that separated the flowers from the vegetable patch. Roderick quickened his pace, rounding a bush of red hibiscus, and then saw something that made him freeze in place. His mother was kneeling on the ground, her white cotton dress soiled with earth, her hands buried in the soil. She was tearing up handfuls of herbs and leaves, bringing them to her mouth desperately, chewing and swallowing as tears streamed down her wrinkled face. Dirt covered her lips, her cheeks, her forehead. She was sobbing softly, as if praying, as if performing some sacred and terrible ritual at the same time. "Mother," Roderick ran to her, kneeling beside her. "Mother, what are you doing? For God's sake!" Helen raised her eyes, and Roderick saw in them a profound confusion, a fear that tore him apart inside. She was trembling, her hands still full of earth and crushed leaves. "I need to, son. I need to do this. She told me. She taught me. It's the only way to speak with your father. He's calling me. He's waiting for me. I need to purify my soul. I need to cleanse myself from within. The herbs purify. The herbs open the way." Her voice was weak, broken, desperate. Roderick felt a tightening in his chest. "Who told you this, Mother? Who?" Helen blinked, confused. "Christine. She knows about spiritual things. She gives me the tea every morning, and then I feel like I need to come here. I need to eat the herbs. I need to connect. Your father is waiting for me, son. He needs to tell me something important." Roderick helped his mother up, gently wiping the dirt from her face with the hem of his own shirt. His heart was pounding, his hands trembling slightly. He led Helen back inside, settled her on the living room sofa, and covered her with a crochet blanket. She looked exhausted, her eyes glazed, her breathing irregular. "Rest, Mother. I'll bring you some fresh water." Roderick went to the kitchen, filled a glass with filtered water, but paused before returning. His eyes scanned the room. Everything seemed normal. Christine was no longer there. She had probably gone upstairs to her room. On the counter, he saw a tray with a floral porcelain cup. It was the tea Christine prepared every morning for Helen. The liquid was dark, almost brown, with a strong herbal smell that Roderick couldn't identify. He picked up the cup, smelled it again. There was something about it that bothered him. It wasn't just chamomile or lemon balm. It was something denser, more bitter. He put the cup back in its place, his mind buzzing with questions. He returned to the living room with the water. Helen drank in small sips, still trembling. Roderick sat beside her, holding her thin, age-spotted hand. "Mother, have you been feeling this frequently? This need to go to the garden and eat the herbs?" She nodded slowly. "Almost every day, son. After Christine's tea, I feel an urgency, a voice inside me telling me I need to go, that I need to purify myself. At first I resisted, but the voice gets so strong, so insistent. And I see your father. I see his face calling me." Roderick took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "And have you told Christine about this?" "Yes, I did. She said it's normal, that it's part of the spiritual process of grief. She said I'm opening myself up to the spiritual plane, and that soon I'll be able to truly communicate with Albert. She's so kind, so attentive. I trust her, son." Roderick swallowed hard. Kindness, attentiveness, care. Everything seemed right on the surface, but something deep and sinister lurked beneath. He didn't know exactly what, but his instinct screamed alarms he couldn't ignore. Later, when Helen finally fell asleep on the sofa, Roderick returned to the garden. He examined the disturbed flower beds, the marks on the soil, the empty spaces where herbs had been torn out. He then noticed something he hadn't before. On the leaves of some still intact plants, there were marks of dried saliva, of desperate fingers. This wasn't from today. This had been happening for some time. He photographed everything with his phone, every flower bed, every mark, every detail. He didn't yet know what he would do with it, but he needed to document it, needed to have proof of something he didn't fully understand. When he returned inside, he found Christine descending the stairs with a calm smile on her face. "Is your mother well? I noticed she went out early today." Roderick stared at her, trying to read beyond the smile. "She was in the garden, doing strange things, eating herbs. From the ground, Christine. She said you advised her to do that." Christine's smile wavered for a fraction of a second, but she quickly recomposed herself. "Roderick, darling, I never told her to eat herbs from the ground. I merely teach techniques for spiritual connection, meditations, visualizations. Sometimes the elderly interpret things differently. Her mind is fragile with grief." Roderick didn't respond immediately. He watched her in silence, noting how she slightly averted her gaze, how her hands moved nervously at the sides of her dress. Perhaps it would be better to suspend the teas for a few days, just to see how she reacts. Christine blinked, surprised. "But Roderick, the teas help so much. Your mother has been sleeping better. She's calmer." "Even so, let's try without them for a while." There was a tension in the air, brief but palpable. Christine nodded, forcing another smile. "Of course, darling. Whatever you think is best." Roderick went up to his father's office, a room that had remained almost untouched since Albert's passing. He opened the drawers of the old desk, searching for anything that could bring clarity. Among yellowed papers and old photographs, he found a sealed envelope. He recognized his father's handwriting on the address. It simply read, "For Roderick if anything strange happens." Roderick sat down heavily in the worn leather chair, opening the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter. "My son, if you are reading this letter, it is because something is not right. I have known Helen for 50 years. I know when she acts of her own free will and when something external influences her. Before I departed this plane, I had disturbing dreams. I saw shadows around your mother. I saw strange hands manipulating her mind. I don't know if these are just an old man's paranoia or true warnings, but I need you to promise me one thing. Watch over Helen. If she starts acting strangely, if someone new enters our lives offering spiritual help, be suspicious. The world is full of opportunists masked as angels. Your loving father, Albert. Roderick read the letter 3 times, his father's words echoing in his mind like alarm bells. His hands trembled holding the yellowed paper. Had Albert foreseen something like this? Had he sensed the approach of some danger, or was it just the natural fear of leaving his wife alone, in the world? He put the letter in the inner pocket of his jacket and went downstairs again. Christine was on the veranda, flipping through a home decor magazine. She seemed completely relaxed, oblivious to the storm brewing in Roderick's head. "I'll need to go back to London tomorrow," he said, sitting beside her. "There are some urgent company matters that can't wait." Christine looked at him with worried eyes. "But what about your mother? Do you think it's safe to leave her now?" Roderick held her hand, forcing a reassuring smile. "That's why I need you to stay here, with her. But please, no tease for now. I want her to rest naturally." She hesitated, but eventually agreed. "Of course, darling. Whatever you think is best." The next morning, Roderick left for the capital, but he didn't go to the office. He went directly to the office of Henry Morgan, a private investigator who had been instrumental in some complex due diligences for property acquisitions. Henry was discreet, efficient, and didn't ask unnecessary questions. "Roderick, what a surprise," Henry said, shaking his hand. "What brings you here, a seller lying about deeds?" Roderick sat in the chair opposite the messy desk of dossiers and photographs. "I need you to investigate someone for me, but this is personal, not professional, and I need total discretion." Henry sat back, interested. "Go on." "My fiancée, Christine Albright. I want to know everything about her. Education, professional history, where she lived, who she associated with, everything." Henry showed no surprise. He had seen everything in his years in the profession. "Do you suspect something specific?" "I don't know yet. I just know my mother has been acting strangely ever since Christine came into her life, and my instinct is screaming that something isn't. Right? I'll start today. I'll send you a preliminary report in 48 hours. Roderick left the office relieved to have taken concrete action, but also anxious about what he might discover. He returned to his apartment in Islington, but couldn't work. He checked his phone every 5 minutes, waiting for news from Henry, monitoring the farm's security cameras remotely. In the images, he saw Christine moving around the house, caring for Helen with apparent dedication. Nothing seemed out of place. Perhaps he was going mad. Perhaps it was just paranoia fueled by his father's enigmatic letter and the stress of work. 48 hours later, Henry called. "Roderick, I need you to come here. I can't talk about this over the phone." Roderick crossed the city in record time, his heart pounding in his chest. When he arrived at the office, Henry had a grave expression. "Sit down, Roderick. This is going to be hard to hear." He opened a thick folder filled with documents, photos, and screen prints. "Christine Albright doesn't exist," Henry began. "Or rather, she does, but she's not who she claims to be. The woman with you is actually named Christine Foster. She used documents from a distant cousin to create a false identity." Roderick felt the world spin. "What do you mean?" "The real Christine Albright is a holistic psychologist, yes, but she's been living in Portugal for 5 years. Your fiancé obtained her documents and has been using that identity. She never graduated in anything related to therapies. She worked as a saleswoman, a waitress, even owned a beauty salon that went bankrupt. No real academic background." Roderick swallowed hard. "And why would she do that?" Henry turned some pages, showing photos. "I found a disturbing pattern. Over the past 7 years, Christine has been involved with at least 3 men with a similar profile to yours. Widowers, wealthy, from the property or financial sector, all with dependent elderly mothers. And what happened to these men?" Henry took a deep breath. "The first, Matthew Andrews, owned a hotel chain in Yorkshire. He met Christine at a charity event. She introduced herself as a holistic therapist and began caring for his mother. 6 months later, Matthew suffered a fatal car accident. His mother lived 4 more months and also passed away, diagnosed with acute kidney failure. Christine managed to claim part of the inheritance, stating they were engaged and he had promised to take care of her. Roderick felt nausea rising. And the others? The second was Anthony Reynolds, a transport entrepreneur in Cornwall. An almost identical story. They met, she cared for his mother, he suffered a cardiac arrest at 52, and his mother passed away 3 months later with the same diagnosis of kidney failure. The third, Robert Finch, developed a fulminant cancer that took him in just 4 months. His mother also fell gravely ill soon after. Roderick was pale. Is someone helping her with this? Henry showed another photo. Dr. Mark Vincent Stone, a general practitioner. He signed the death certificates in all these situations, always declaring natural causes. He has a practice in Birmingham but attends in several provincial towns. Coincidentally, he has a history of ethics complaints filed but dismissed due to lack of evidence. So it's a scheme, Roderick murmured. She seduces wealthy widowed men, gains access to their mothers, and somehow— Henry completed the thought. Somehow she and this doctor orchestrate situations that appear natural but aren't. I don't have concrete proof yet, but the pattern is undeniable. And Roderick, there's one more thing. What? Dr. Stone spent a week in the Midlands countryside 2 weeks ago, very close to your farm. Roderick stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth in the small office. I need concrete proof, Henry. I need to catch them doing something wrong. Mere suspicions won't hold anyone. Henry nodded. I can install listening devices and hidden cameras on the farm, but you need to act normally. You can't give any indication that you know something. Do it. Install everything. I'll go back there tomorrow and act as if nothing has happened. Roderick barely slept that night. The images of the men who had passed away, of the mothers who had mysteriously fallen ill, spun in his head like a macabre carousel. Was he the next target? Was his mother being slowly poisoned? The teas, the herbs, the strange behaviors, everything made sense now, under a sinister light. He returned to the farm the next morning with a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of disguised terror. Christine greeted him with a tight hug and a lingering kiss. I missed you, love. Your mother is much better, you know. Without the teas, she's more energetic. She even helped bake a cake. Today. Roderick forced a smile. That's good. I'll stay here for a few days. I managed to clear my schedule. During dinner, he observed Christine's every movement, the way she served the food, the way she looked at Helen, the way she smiled at him. Everything seemed genuine, but now he knew it was just a very well-constructed mask. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, Roderick silently went down to the kitchen. Henry had installed micro-cameras at strategic points during the afternoon, while Christine and Helen were taking a walk through the orange groves. Roderick carefully opened the kitchen cabinets, looking for the tea jars Christine used. He found several glass jars with dried herbs, all with handwritten labels: chamomile, lemon balm, mint, fennel. They looked normal, smelled normal. But was there something else? Some hidden ingredient? Some substance that was causing his mother's strange behaviors? He took a small sample from each jar, placing them in separate plastic bags that he stored in a cooler bag. Henry knew a discreet laboratory that could perform analyses without raising suspicion. He closed everything carefully, leaving each item exactly as it was. In the following days, Roderick adopted an obsessive routine of observation. He noted in a small notebook he kept in his pocket every time Christine interacted with Helen, every gesture, every word. He noted what his mother ate, how she reacted, what symptoms she presented. It was as if he had returned to his college days, when he took meticulous notes for engineering exams. Christine prepared tea at 9 in the morning. Mother drank half a cup. By 10:30, she began to get agitated, saying she felt hot, even though the temperature was mild. At 11, she went to the garden alone. He discreetly followed his mother when she went out for her strange rituals. He photographed but never interfered, no matter how much it pained him to see her in that state. He needed the proof. He needed to document everything. One night, while reviewing the hidden camera recordings on his laptop, Roderick saw something that made him stop breathing. It was early morning in the recording, around 3 o'clock. Christine came down the stairs, wearing only a white nightgown, barefoot. She went straight to the kitchen. She turned on only a faint light over the sink. Then, from inside the cabinet under the sink, where cleaning products were kept, she took out a small dark glass vial without a label. Roderick zoomed in on the image. Christine looked around, checking if she was alone, and then opened the vial. She poured something down the sink drain, an oily, dark liquid. Then she carefully washed the vial, rinsed it several times and broke it inside a plastic bag. She wrapped everything in newspaper and placed it at the bottom of the bin, covering it with other waste. Roderick felt a shiver run down his spine. That was the proof he needed. Something was being secretly administered, and now she was getting rid of the evidence. But what was it? Why get rid of it now? The next morning, as soon as Christine left for town, claiming she was going to buy fresh bread, Roderick rushed to the bin. He carefully rummaged through it until he found the newspaper bundle. Inside the shards of the vial, there were still residues of the liquid on the broken glass walls. He put everything in another plastic bag, sealed it well, and stored it in his suitcase. He immediately called Henry. "I discovered something. I have a vial she threw away in the early hours. This needs to be analyzed urgently." Henry promised to pick up the material that same night, disguised as a delivery driver. "I'll send it to the lab today. We'll have the results in 72 hours. Meanwhile, Helen began to show more severe physical symptoms. Reddish spots appeared on her arms and neck. Her hands trembled constantly. She complained of abdominal pains that made her double over in agony. Roderick wanted to take her to the hospital, but Christine always intervened sweetly. "Darling, this is normal for people her age. Hormonal changes, skin sensitivity. No need to alarm her with hospitals. I have some natural creams that will help." But Roderick insisted. "I'm going to call the family doctor." Christine became visibly tense. "Which doctor?" "Dr. Frederick Gardner, the general practitioner who has been taking care of my mother for 15 years. "Ah, yes, of course. But perhaps it's better to wait, see if the symptoms improve with the creams, don't you think?" Roderick pretended to agree, but that same afternoon he called Dr. Gardner, asking him to visit the farm. The doctor arrived the next day, a grey-haired gentleman with round spectacles who examined Helen with paternal care. "Helen, have you been eating well, taken any new medication?" The elderly woman looked at Christine before answering, as if asking for permission. "Only the teas Christine prepares, doctor. They are natural teas for anxiety." Dr. Gardner examined the skin spots, her tongue, her eyes. He made some notes. "Roderick, I need to do some blood tests. These spots could indicate an allergic reaction or something more serious. I'll collect the samples now and take them for analysis." Christine remained silent throughout the examination, but Roderick noticed how her hands clenched in her lap, how her foot lightly tapped the floor, nervous signs she tried to disguise with a serene smile. After Dr. Gardner left, Christine hugged Roderick from behind while he was on the veranda. "You're worrying too much, love. Your mother will be fine. She's strong." Roderick turned, looking into her eyes. "Christine, I need to ask you something. Have you cared for other elderly people before? Have you worked with other families?" She blinked, surprised by the question. "Yes, of course. I worked with some families in Birmingham. Why?" "Just curious. You're so good at it, so dedicated. You must have good references." "Yes, I do. All the families were very satisfied with my work." Roderick nodded, but in his mind echoed the names Henry had discovered. Matthew Andrews, Anthony Reynolds, Robert Finch, all satisfied with her work until they ceased to exist. That night, as they dined, Helen barely touched her food. She was pale, her eyes sunken. Suddenly she got up and went to her room to fetch something. She returned with a sketchbook and colored pencils. She sat at the table and began to draw with intensity, as if possessed by an artistic urgency. Roderick and Christine watched in silence. Helen had always enjoyed painting, but it had been years since she picked up pencils or brushes. The drawing emerging on the paper was disturbing. A shadowy female figure with long black hair held a vial in her raised hand. Beside her, an elderly woman with wide eyes, mouth open in astonishment or terror. Between them, withered flowers falling to the ground. When she finished, Helen pushed the drawing towards Roderick. "This, son, this is what I see every night. The shadow with the vial, the dying flowers." Christine laughed nervously. "Helen, what an imagination. It must be the dreams. Your mind playing tricks." But Roderick carefully took the drawing as if it were a sacred relic. He put it away, knowing it was another piece of the puzzle he was assembling. His mother, at some deep and unconscious level, knew she was being poisoned, knew she was in danger. The laboratory results arrived 3 days later. Henry called, his voice urgent. "Roderick, the liquid in the vial contains toxic plant-derived alkaloids. They are not lethal in small doses, but they cause mental confusion, hallucinations, compulsions. Prolonged use can lead to kidney and liver failure." This substance was being administered systematically. Roderick closed his eyes, the pieces finally fitting together completely. So that's how it worked. Small, daily doses, disguised in natural teas. The symptoms seemed natural, related to age and grief. And when the damage became irreversible, Dr. Stone would conveniently appear to sign the death certificates. "I need to get her out of here," Roderick said. "I need to get my mother away from this woman now." "Calm down, Roderick. If you act rashly, she might flee, and we'll never get justice. Besides, we need to catch the doctor too. He's an essential part of this scheme." "So, what do I do?" "Keep acting normally. Just don't let your mother consume anything else Christine prepares. Invent excuses, distractions, and stay alert. If my experience tells me anything, it's that she must be planning her next move." As if she had overheard the conversation, Christine appeared that same evening with a proposal. "Roderick, love, I have an idea. How about we take your mother to the Lakeside Lodge this weekend? Fresh air, tranquil scenery, it will do her good. And for us too, a little rest together." The Lakeside Lodge was an isolated property belonging to the Thompson family, located on the shores of a reservoir 3 hours from the farm. Roderick felt a chill. An isolated place, far from everything and everyone, the perfect setting for something definitive to happen. But he replied with a smile, "Great idea, Chris. Let's all 3 go." The trip to the Lakeside Lodge took place on a sunny Friday. Roderick drove the pickup truck along the dirt roads that wound between mountains covered with ancient pines and native woodland areas. Helen was in the back seat observing the landscape with tired eyes. Christine was beside Roderick wearing dark sunglasses, softly humming a song on the radio. Before leaving, Roderick had called Henry. "We're going to the Lakeside Lodge. I think that's where she'll try something definitive." Henry was already prepared. "I've installed a discreet GPS tracker in her car and yours. I'll follow at a distance with my team. I also installed small cameras in the Lakeside Lodge last night. We'll monitor remotely. If anything gets out of control, I'll call the police immediately." Roderick felt minimally safer, knowing he wasn't completely alone, but the knot in his stomach remained. He was leading his elderly mother into a trap, using her as bait, and this realization gnawed at him from within. The Lakeside Lodge appeared at the end of a private road, hidden among ancient Scots pines. It was a wooden and stone construction, rustic and cozy, with a wide veranda that opened directly onto the mirrored waters of the reservoir. Roderick had happy memories from there, childhood weekends fishing with his father, family barbecues, laughter echoing through the woods. Now the place seemed sinister, laden with an invisible tension that made the air heavy in his lungs. "What a beautiful place," Christine sighed, getting out of the car and stretching her arms. "It's going to be a wonderful weekend, I'm sure." Roderick helped his mother out, holding her arm carefully. Helen looked at the house with a strange expression, as if recognizing something threatening in that peaceful beauty. "Are you all right, Mother?" Roderick asked softly. She looked at him with moist eyes. "Your father loved this place. He used to say that here we were closer to heaven. Is he waiting for me, son?" Roderick felt a pang in his chest. "No, Mother. Father wants you to live, to be happy. He's not waiting for you to leave." Helen nodded slowly, but didn't seem convinced. They settled into the house. Christine took charge of the kitchen, preparing a light lunch with salad, grilled fish, and natural juice. Roderick observed her every movement, every ingredient she used, every seasoning she added. He trusted nothing that came from her hands. At mealtime, he discreetly swapped his mother's plate with his own, ensuring that anything adulterated would go to him, not to her. Christine didn't seem to notice. The afternoon passed slowly. Helen slept in the hammock on the veranda, lulled by the breeze coming from the lake. Roderick walked around the property checking the surroundings, locating the tiny cameras Henry had installed. They were practically invisible, disguised in branches in the wooden slats of the veranda on the living room chandelier. Christine was in the bedroom when her phone rang. Roderick was passing through the hallway and stopped, leaning against the wall to listen. "Hello? Oh, hi. Yes, we're here. Tomorrow? Perfect. Yes, she's fine. A little weaker, exactly as we planned. He suspects nothing. Everything is all right." Roderick felt his blood run cold. She was confirming something with someone. The doctor, probably. Tomorrow something was going to happen. He moved away silently and went to the veranda, sitting beside his mother, who had already woken up. She held his hand with surprising strength for someone so frail. "Son, I'm scared," she confessed in a whisper. "Scared of what, Mother?" "I can't explain, but I feel something bad is going to happen. Ever since we arrived here, I've felt a weight, a dark presence." Roderick hugged her, feeling tears burn his eyes. "I will protect you, Mother. I won't let anything bad happen. I promise." She rested her head on her son's shoulder. "Your father always told me something whenever I was afraid. He said, 'When you're afraid, look at the flowers. Flowers always find light, even in darkness.'" Roderick remembered that phrase. His father really did say that, especially during difficult times in life. It was almost a mantra for the Thompson family. Night fell quickly over the lake, the sky filled with stars that rarely appeared in big cities. Christine prepared dinner, lit candles, put on soft music. Everything seemed romantically planned, carefully orchestrated. After dinner, Helen retired early. Roderick accompanied her to her room, helped her lie down, covered her carefully. "Lock the door from the inside, Mother. And don't open it for anyone but me. If you need anything, call me." She looked at him with fear but obeyed. Roderick heard the click of the lock and sighed with relief. He returned to the living room where Christine was waiting for him with 2 glasses of wine. He sat beside her on the leather sofa, accepted the glass but didn't drink. "You're strange today, love," she commented, running her fingers through his hair. "Tense, worried." "It's work. Many things happening at once." She leaned in, kissed his neck. "Forget about work. We're here to rest, to be together." Roderick gently pulled away. "I'm very tired, Chris. I think I'll go to bed early, too." He saw a flicker of irritation in her eyes, quickly disguised by a sympathetic smile. "Of course, darling. Rest." Roderick went to his room, but didn't sleep. He sat on the bed, fully clothed with the door ajar, attentive to any sound. Through the window he saw the moon reflected in the lake, calm and indifferent to the human drama unfolding. Around 2 in the morning he heard a car approaching. He got up, went to the window. A black sedan parked next to the pickup truck. A man got out, took a briefcase from the boot. Even from a distance and in the dim light, Roderick recognized his stature, his walk. Dr. Mark Vincent Stone. So it was now. It was tonight. The plan would be executed in the next few hours. Roderick took out his phone and sent an urgent message to Henry. "He's here. Dr. Stone is here. I need backup now." The reply came in seconds. "We're 15 minutes away. Police already alerted. Don't do anything rash." Roderick silently opened his bedroom door and went to the hallway. Voices came from the living room. He approached, hiding behind a bookshelf that had a partial view of the room. Christine and Dr. Stone were talking in low voices. "She's in the back bedroom," Christine said. "Very weak. Her kidneys must already be compromised. It will be easy." Dr. Stone opened his briefcase. Inside, glass vials with transparent liquids, syringes, ampules. But unlike other times, he seemed hesitant. "Christine, I don't know if I can do this again." She turned to him, furious. What do you mean you can't? We've done this 3 times already. It always worked. But this time it's different. Her son is here, he's observant. And I can't bear to sign false certificates like cover-up anymore. My conscience can't take it. Christine laughed, a cold, cutting sound. Conscience? Now you have a conscience. After everything we've already done, after all the money you've already pocketed. I want out, Christine. I want to stop this. She approached him, dangerous. You're not getting out. You're going to do exactly what I tell you, because if you don't, I'll expose everything. I'll say you were the one who had the idea, who manipulated me, who used your position as a doctor to commit these acts. Who do you think they'll believe? The poor deceived psychologist or the corrupt doctor? Dr. Stone paled. You're a monster. I'm a survivor, and so are you, or at least you were. Now finish the job. Roderick knew he had to act. He couldn't wait another 15 minutes. He stepped out from behind the bookshelf, entering the living room. I think the job is already done, Christine. She turned abruptly, her face paling at the sight of him. Roderick, what are you doing awake? Protecting my mother. From you. Dr. Stone took a step back. His briefcase falling from his hands onto the wooden floor with a dull thud. Vials clinked inside it. Christine quickly recomposed herself, forcing a confused smile. Roderick, darling, you're misunderstanding everything. Dr. Stone is a friend, a consultant. I called him to check on your mother because I'm worried about her. In the middle of the night, with a briefcase full of medications. Roderick walked until he stood between them and the hallway leading to Helen's bedroom. I know everything, Christine. Or should I call you Christine Foster? She became completely still. The smile vanished from her face. I know about Matthew Andrews, about Anthony Reynolds, about Robert Finch. I know about their mothers, about how they all mysteriously fell ill and passed away shortly after their sons. I know about the false certificates that our good doctor here signed. Dr. Stone was visibly panicked. How did you find out? I hired an investigator. I analyzed the liquid you poured down the drain, Christine. Toxic alkaloids, substances that cause mental confusion, kidney failure. I recorded you planning all of this. I have proof of every step of this monstrous scheme. Christine lost all pretense of sweetness. Her eyes became hard, cold. You have nothing. These are just speculations. Roderick took his phone from his pocket. The hidden cameras recorded you two talking just now. They recorded you confessing your plans, threatening the doctor here. It's all documented, Christine. She was breathing with difficulty, her hands clenched into fists. Why? Why are you so difficult? The others were much easier. They trusted, they believed, they truly fell in love. You always had this irritating distrust. Roderick felt nauseous. You seduced vulnerable men, gained their trust, entered their families. You slowly poisoned their mothers while planning the son's demise. And when you got what you wanted, you moved on to the next victim. All for money, for inheritances. She let out a bitter laugh. You don't understand anything. It's not just for money. It's for justice. Rich men like you, who have everything, who have never suffered, who exploit people like me their whole lives. I just take what you have in excess. You don't take. You destroy. You destroyed entire families, manipulated vulnerable people at the most fragile time of their lives. Dr. Stone intervened, his voice trembling. Roderick, I didn't want to do this. She blackmailed me, manipulated me. I was in debt, desperate. It was my weakness, I know. But I'm not a monster. You both are monsters, a weak voice said from the hallway. Everyone turned. Helen was there, leaning against the doorframe, dressed in a white nightgown, her grey hair loose on her shoulders. She looked like a ghostly apparition, but her eyes were clear, lucid. Mother, go back to your room, Roderick pleaded. She shook her head. No, son, I need to say something. Helen walked slowly until she stood in front of Christine and Dr. Stone. She looked into both their eyes with surprising strength. I always knew, she said. Deep down, I always knew something was wrong. But I was so lost in sadness, so confused by the absence of my Albert, that I let you in. I let you play with my mind, with my body. Christine took a step forward, dangerous. Helen, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. I know you put things in the teas. I know you made me feel that crazy urge to eat the herbs, to perform rituals I've never done in my life. I know you were trying to make me sick, to weaken me, to prepare me to leave just like the other mothers left. Dr. Stone began to cry. I'm so sorry, Helen. I'm so very sorry. Helen looked at him, and for a moment there was compassion in her eyes. My husband, Albert, always told me something whenever I was afraid. He said, when you're afraid, look at the flowers. Flowers always find light, even in darkness. Dr. Stone sobbed. My mother said the same thing. She passed away 5 years ago, and I was so lost, so destroyed by debts. When Christine offered me that money, I thought it was the only way out. But I betrayed everything my mother taught me. I betrayed my profession. I betrayed life. Helen placed her trembling hand on his shoulder. There's still time to find the light, Doctor. There's still time to do what's right. He looked at her, then at Roderick. I'll confess everything. I'll hand over all the proof I have. The records, the names, everything. Just let me do the right thing for once. Christine exploded. You pathetic weakling, you always were. She tried to run towards the door, but Roderick blocked her. There was a brief struggle, Christine. Scratching, pushing, trying to escape. But at that moment, red and blue lights illuminated the house windows. Sirens cut through the silence of the night. Henry had arrived with the police. Officers entered through the door, weapons drawn, firm voices ordering everyone to stay still. Christine was immobilized, handcuffed, thrown to the floor as she screamed incoherent accusations. Dr. Stone did not resist, offering his wrists for the handcuffs with resignation. Henry entered right behind, accompanied by a gray-haired detective. Roderick, Helen, are you all right? Roderick hugged his mother, who finally collapsed in tears on her son's shoulder. We are. Thank God we are. The detective approached. Roderick Thompson, I'm Detective Paul Henry Nolan. We received a report of attempted poisoning and conspiracy. We need your statements and all the evidence you have. Roderick handed over his phone with the recordings, explained about the hidden cameras, about the analyzed vial, about Henry's report. Everything was documented, photographed, assembled into an overwhelming body of evidence. Dr. Stone, still handcuffed, asked to speak. Detective, I want to cooperate. I have documents in my office that prove everything, records of payments Christine made to me, copies of certificates I forged, names of the other victims. I'll hand over everything. Christine spat in his direction. Traitor, you'll regret this. The detective looked at her with contempt. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use that right. Christine was taken first, screaming threats and insults until she was put into the police car and disappeared down the dark road. Dr. Stone went in another car, head bowed, defeated. Roderick and Helen stayed on the veranda of the house, wrapped in blankets, drinking hot tea that Henry had prepared. Dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and orange over the lake. It was beautiful, peaceful, as if nature had not witnessed the human drama of that night. You were very brave, Mother, Roderick said, holding her hand. She smiled, tired but relieved. Your father gave me strength. Even though he's no longer here, he still protects me. In the following days, developments were rapid. Dr. Stone kept his word. He fully opened his files to the authorities, revealing a scheme that had operated for almost a decade. In addition to the 3 cases Henry had already discovered, 2 more emerged, all following the same macabre pattern. Families destroyed, lives prematurely cut short, inheritances diverted. Christine was indicted for multiple crimes: fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and attempted aggravated murder. Her pre-trial detention was ordered, and she would await trial locked up, with no possibility of causing further harm. Dr. Stone, in exchange for his full cooperation, secured a plea bargain. He would still be punished, still face severe consequences, but would have the chance to partially redeem himself by testifying against Christine and helping the families of the other victims find answers. Helen spent 2 weeks hospitalized in a private hospital in Birmingham, under the intensive care of nephrologists and toxicologists. The kidney damage was reversible thanks to timely intervention. The doctors were impressed by her recovery. They said she had an extraordinary life force, a will to live that surpassed any clinical expectation. Roderick didn't leave her side throughout the hospitalization. He worked from his laptop in the hospital room, held meetings via video conference, but never left her alone. He was afraid that if he blinked, if he got distracted for a second, she would disappear. Gradually, Helen returned to her old self. The mental confusion lessened, color returned to her face, the sparkle returned to her eyes. She started making small drawings again, but now they were flowers, birds, serene landscapes, no shadows or vials. One afternoon, while she rested after a physiotherapy session, Roderick received a visit from two women. They were the daughters of Anthony Reynolds and Robert Finch, two of Christine's previous victims. "We came to thank you," said the elder, a woman in her 40s with teary eyes. "For years we didn't understand what had happened to our fathers and grandmothers. They said it was natural, that it was life, but we knew something was wrong. Now we finally have answers," the younger woman added. "And, most importantly, you prevented other families from going through the same thing. You saved your mother and saved future victims from this woman." Roderick shook their hands, moved. "I am so sorry for what you went through. I hope you find peace now." They stayed for a few minutes talking softly, sharing memories of fathers and grandmothers who passed away too soon, stolen by greed disguised as affection. When they left, Roderick felt an added weight on his shoulders. It wasn't guilt, but responsibility. Responsibility to do something with that second chance he had been given. Helen was discharged from the hospital with recommendations for regular follow-ups, a balanced diet and rest. They returned to St. Helens Farm, which now seemed different, lighter, brighter. Or perhaps it was they who were different. Roderick hired a trusted nurse, Lucy, a middle-aged woman recommended by Dr. Gardner. Lucy was attentive but not intrusive, competent but caring. Helen liked her immediately. The following months were about rebuilding. Roderick drastically reduced his workload at the company, delegating more responsibilities to trusted partners. He started going to the farm every week, sometimes staying for entire days, simply accompanying his mother's recovery, walking through the gardens, talking about memories, about his father, about life. One evening, sitting on the veranda under the starry sky, Helen held her son's hand. "Roderick, I was thinking about something. Tell me, Mother. All this we went through, all this suffering, it needs to serve a greater purpose. It cannot be in vain." "It wasn't in vain, Mother. You are here, alive, recovered. That woman is imprisoned. That is already a lot." Helen shook her head. "No, son. It needs to be more. How many other elderly people are being manipulated right now at this very moment? How many are alone, vulnerable, being exploited by people they trust?" Roderick reflected on that, probably many. The world was full of predators disguised as caregivers. "What do you suggest, Mother?" She looked at the vastness of the farm. "We have so much space here, so much empty space. What if we created a place to welcome elderly people at risk, people who have been abandoned, mistreated, deceived? A safe place, with true care, with true love." Roderick felt something ignite in his chest. A care home, a refuge for the vulnerable. The idea was beautiful, meaningful, a way to transform pain into purpose. "I love this idea, Mother. Let's do this. Let's create a place that honors Father's memory and everything we've been through." In the following months, Roderick immersed himself in this new project with a passion he hadn't felt in years. He consulted social workers, architects specializing in accessibility, geriatric doctors, psychologists. He planned every detail of the care home, which would be built in a renovated wing of the farm. Helen actively participated, choosing colors, suggesting common areas, planning therapeutic gardens where future residents could plant flowers and vegetables. She had returned to painting, now with total dedication, creating canvases of flowering jacaranda trees, golden laburnums, radiant sunflowers. Christine's trial took place almost a year after her arrest. The jury sentenced her to 24 years of imprisonment, without the right to parole in the initial years. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies devastating. She heard the sentence without emotion, her face an empty mask. Dr. Stone received a sentence of 12 years, but with the possibility of semi-open regime after serving 1/3. He would continue assisting investigations and work in prisoner rehabilitation programs. Roderick attended the trial, sitting beside Helen, who had insisted on being present. When it was all over, when Christine was escorted out of the courtroom, Helen whispered to her son, "I forgive her, not for what she did, but for myself. I won't carry hatred in my heart for the time I have left." Roderick hugged his mother, admiring her strength and wisdom. He still struggled with anger, with the feeling of betrayal, but he saw in his mother an example of what he could become if he chose healing instead of resentment. The inauguration of the Albert Thompson Care Home took place on a sunny spring morning, almost 18 months after that terrible night at the lake. The property was transformed. What was once just a tool shed and storage annex had now transformed into a welcoming and modern space, specially designed to accommodate up to 20 vulnerable elderly people. There were spacious and bright rooms, adapted bathrooms, a common room with comfortable sofas and a library, an industrial yet cozy kitchen where residents could participate in meal preparation if they wished, and the therapeutic garden Helen had so dreamed of. In the garden, mature jacaranda trees offered shade. Organized flower beds allowed each resident to cultivate their own flowers and herbs, and wooden benches invited contemplation and conversation. A water fountain gently flowed in the center, creating a soothing melody. Roderick had hired a multidisciplinary team: nurses, physiotherapists, trained caregivers, a psychologist specializing in abandonment and abuse trauma, a nutritionist, and even an art teacher who would teach painting and crafts. All underwent rigorous background checks and training on how to identify signs of manipulation and abuse. On the inauguration day, local authorities, representatives of elderly care councils, regional journalists, and most importantly, the first 3 residents to be welcomed, were present. Emmanuel, an 84-year-old man who had been abandoned by his children in an unregulated care home and rescued by social workers. Teresa, a 79-year-old widow who had almost fallen victim to scammers posing as fake lawyers, and Jasper, an 81-year-old retiree whose niece had tried to have him legally incapacitated to seize his assets. Roderick personally welcomed them, helping them get acquainted with their rooms, introducing them to the team, showing them the garden where they could plant whatever they wished. Their eyes shone, some with tears of emotion, others with renewed hope. Helen was radiant. She wore a floral dress, her hair pulled back in an elegant bun, and circulated among the guests, with an energy Roderick hadn't seen in years. She showed everyone her paintings of jacaranda trees that decorated the common room walls, explained the garden's cultivation system, and spoke passionately about the importance of protecting the most vulnerable. The official ceremony took place in the late afternoon, with the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange. A small stage had been set up in the outdoor area near the garden. Roderick went up first, holding a microphone, emotional. "Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank each of you who came to celebrate this very special moment with us. This care home was born from deep pain, but also from equally deep hope. My family went through an ordeal that could have destroyed us. We almost lost my mother to people who disguised malice as kindness, greed as care." He paused, looking at Helen, who was in the front row. "But we didn't lose. We fought, we resisted, and we transformed that suffering into something that can help others. This home is a tribute to my father, Albert Thompson, a just and generous man who always believed in caring for the most vulnerable, and it is a promise that, here on these lands, elderly people at risk will find safety, respect, and true love." The applause was warm. Roderick descended and helped his mother onto the stage. She held a yellowed envelope that Roderick immediately recognized. It was one of the last letters Albert had written before he passed away. "My dear friends," Helen began with a firm voice, "I want to read to you something my husband wrote some years ago when he already felt his time here was coming to an end. He didn't know exactly what would happen, but he left words that now make perfect sense." She opened the letter and began to read. "Dearest Helen, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer physically by your side, but I want you to know that my love for you transcends any distance. You are the strongest woman I have ever known, and I know you will remain strong even without me. Take care. Be wary of those who offer help too easily. Always look at the flowers, for they teach us that even in the hardest ground, with patience and care, beauty can flourish. And if one day you have the chance to help someone who is going through difficulties, do so in my memory. Transform any pain into light. With all my eternal love, Albert. Helen folded the letter, tears calmly streaming down her face. This is what we are doing here, transforming pain into light. And we will do this every day for every person who arrives here needing safety and affection. The applause echoed again, even more intensely. Many of those present had teary eyes. Roderick went up to the stage again, embracing his mother for a long time. In the months that followed, the Albert Thompson Care home became a regional benchmark. Other residents arrived, each carrying their stories of abandonment, abuse, loneliness, and each found there not just shelter, but a new family. Helen spent her days divided between painting, tending the garden, and conversing with the residents. She had become a kind of loving matriarch, someone who deeply understood the vulnerability of others because she had traversed her own journey through the dark valley of manipulation. Roderick completely restructured his life. He remained at the helm of the property company, but now with operational partners who handled the day-to-day, he dedicated most of his time to managing the care home, fundraising and liaising with public bodies to replicate the model in other regions. One afternoon, 6 months after the inauguration, Roderick and Helen walked through the garden. The jacaranda trees were in bloom, their purple flowers falling like colorful snow onto the stone paths. Emmanuel cultivated orchids in a flower bed. Teresa painted watercolors on the veranda. Jasper read a book in the shade. "Do you know what I think, son?" Helen said, stopping to admire a sunflower bed. "What, mother?" "I think your father orchestrated all of this from above. Those letters he left, those warnings, that phrase about looking at the flowers, he knew I would need strength and he knew you would need a greater purpose." Roderick smiled, thoughtful. "Perhaps you're right. He was always a visionary. And now look what we've created. A place where people who were discarded by the world find dignity again. A place where the most withered flower can bloom once more." Roderick hugged his mother, feeling deep gratitude for having her there, alive, strong, inspiring. "And I am grateful every day that we had this chance, Mother. Not all stories end like this." "But ours did. Son, and what a beautiful ending, don't you think?" He agreed, looking around at that piece of land that had transformed into an oasis of hope. Very beautiful. Months turned into years. The care home grew, gained annexes, welcomed over 50 elderly residents over time. Some arrived weak and left strengthened to reunite with reconciled family members. Others spent their last years there with dignity and love, surrounded by true care. Roderick never married again. He dedicated himself entirely to his mother, to the social project and to rebuilding trust in humanity. He eventually met other people, had relationships, but always with caution, with the scar left by Christine reminding him to keep his eyes open. Christine served her sentence in a closed regime. Roderick learned from sparse news that she showed no remorse, remaining manipulative even in prison. He chose not to think about her anymore, not to give that shadowy figure any more space in his mind. Dr. Stone, on the other hand, had genuinely transformed. He worked providing medical assistance to other inmates, studied remotely to specialize in bioethics, and maintained correspondence with Roderick, periodically asking for news about Helen. Roderick replied briefly, without resentment, but also without closeness. Some bridges once burned are not fully rebuilt. The walls of the care home filled with a phrase that was repeated in paintings by the residents themselves. "When you're afraid, look at the flowers." It became a mantra, a reminder that there is always beauty to be found, always hope to be cultivated, even in the darkest moments. And so, dear listeners, we conclude the story of Roderick, Helen, and the Albert Thompson Care Home. A narrative about manipulation and redemption, about vulnerability and strength, about how darkness can be transformed into light when we choose the path of love and justice. We hope this story has touched your hearts as much as it touched ours in telling it. If you were moved by this journey, we have a special playlist waiting for you, full of equally captivating stories about the complexity of life, about forgiveness, about new beginnings. You can find it by clicking on the left. And if this story resonated with your soul, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore the best and most challenging aspects of the human experience. Share in the comments what you felt while following Roderick and Helen's journey. Tell us if you know similar stories, if you believe in the power of forgiveness and transformation. Your participation enriches our community and motivates us to continue bringing content that matters. Until the next story, and always remember, when you're afraid, look at the flowers.